Hey, it's Dr. Walking Dead here. I'm trying something new to contribute to Jay the Dead's new horror movies YouTube channel. We haven't been putting out a lot of content over here. We've mostly been doing audio podcasting. And so those of you who know who I am are familiar probably with my segment, The Dead Zone, where I mostly focus on movies dealing with dead, undead, ghosts, the gothic, etc. Or my standalone solo cast, Dead Man Still Walking, which is also under Jay's umbrella. I've been working on that for a while. Those are all audio, so I thought, you know what, I could get my mug out. I've got this huge beard. I should use it. So I thought I would do some short segments for the YouTube channel to see if that's of interest to anybody, see if it gains any traction. So these are going to be some really miniature reviews. And what I'm doing here is I'm taking a cue from the relatively new, awesome horror podcast, the No Bodies Horror Cast, which is co-hosted by Lonely and Projectile Varmint. And you should really go check it out because they have some really insightful discussion of horror films. And horror movie podcasting is pretty much dominated by men, so it is cool to get a different perspective. And I've listened to a number of their shows and quite enjoyed it. So do check out the No Bodies podcast. Now, what they did with New Horror Movies' very own Mr. Watson is they did a 3-part series where they did kind of like a elimination round challenge combat among all the A24 horror movies. So I had seen a lot of the A24 horror movies, probably obviously, but I wanted to go back and see what I had missed, and I wanted to kind of see how I felt about the films and how they measured up to the reviews and the discussions that were on that 3-part No Bodies podcast. So what I'm going to do is, I think I've got I'm going to do 5 episodes of this for the YouTube channel. So I'm going to talk about 5 A24 horror films for each one. Now this one I'm setting up, so we're losing some of the time already, but I'll keep these nice and short so everybody can kind of try to enjoy them. So I'm trying to use my phone, high tech, to record some of this, but I've also got my computer up so I can cross-reference what I'm talking about. And I'm going to go through these in the release order. So we're going to start off with the first 5 A24 films that most of us consider to be horror, even though Internet Movie Database may not agree at all. So where we're going to start is the 2013 film Enemy. Enemy, which is directed by Denis Villeneuve, and he's certainly come on the scene recently in more of the public eye because of his work on Dune 2, coming out soon. And I think he's just a really amazing director. He's quite visionary. I really liked what he did with Blade Runner. I just had it. I love his film Arrival. But anyway, so this is where things started for A24 in the horror realm, although Internet Movie Database calls this a drama mystery thriller. I think it is pretty horrifying, and I think it does very much begin that idea of A24 being more art horror, a little bit more art house. So this film is pretty trippy. Jake Gyllenhaal plays a dual role, Adam and his doppelganger Anthony. And so this is a film about duality, about doubling, about, what would you do if you had a double? How would you explore the things that come along with that? Now, it's a trippy film, and it's probably a little bit more surreal than it is horror, but I certainly think it's horror because of some of the interpersonal things that go south because of this, and because of kind of how it resolves at the end. It's got some really creepy moments that are happening among the cast members. I will admit that I saw this one a little while ago, so I don't have a lot of the details in my mind, but I do know that I enjoyed it. So this is a good place to start with A24 horror. It's also a good place to start with some surreal psychological horror if that's your thing or you think it might be your thing. So I'm gonna do the Jay of the Dead approach to reviewing these, and I'm gonna call this an 8 out of 10. I think this is definitely worth a watch. I think this is probably good enough to own, but I am biased because I love this director so much. All right, so that was 2013. Also in 2013, we get the Scarlett Johansson vehicle, Under the Skin. Under the Skin is a drama horror mystery, according to Internet Movie Database. I would definitely make sure we call it a science fiction film. This is very much science fiction. And it is Scarlett Johansson playing very much against type. She is essentially playing maybe some kind of alien, some kind of interdimensional being. It's kept lovely, bizarre. I can't think of how else to say that. This is Jonathan Glazer's film. So Jonathan Glazer co-wrote this with Walter Campbell and Michelle Faber. But he directed it, and it's a really cool concept. And it is again kind of an art house piece. So Scarlett Johansson plays a character called the Female, and a lot of this movie was filmed kind of like a reality TV show in a way. So Scarlett Johansson would drive around and kind of engage with people on the street. And so a lot of the actors in this are not actors, and in fact, they didn't even know they were in a movie at the time. They secured the kind of their permission to be in the movie later. And so that's really kind of cool, and it renders some really raw performances because they're not performances. They are people who are responding to Scarlett Johansson's character. Now, this was before she was huge, so she couldn't get away with this today, but a lot of these people who she talks to, they have no idea who she is or what's going on. But basically the idea is the female drives around late at night and picks up guys and then seduces them and they get naked, and then she like absorbs them in this weird other realm of darkness. So it's creepy and it's kind of bizarre, and I don't love it. It's at the top of a couple people's lists. But I think it's definitely worth checking out. It's really, really unsettling, and I like it quite a bit. I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10. Definitely a priority to watch. Don't know if it's everyone's cup of tea, so I'm not sure if I would recommend owning it. Now, the third one, 2014, we get Ex Machina. Ex Machina, which is written and directed by one of my favorite filmmakers right now, Alex Garland. Alex Garland is producing some really amazing work. And I love this movie because, well, first off, the cast is amazing. So we have Alicia Vikander as Ava. We've got Domhnall Gleeson as Caleb, and I like this guy a lot. You know, he was super cool in the Star Wars follow-up trilogy. He stars in one of the greatest romance time travel movies of all time. And, you know, he was in Harry Potter. But I really like him. And then Oscar Isaac is playing Nathan. So we have a lot of Star Wars connections here. Anyway, what's super cool about Ex Machina, the drama sci-fi thriller, is that it starts like Dracula. It starts with Gleeson's character, Caleb, traveling out into this remote area to visit the eccentric Nathan, who has like a modern day super technological but otherwise castle. So we start off with this sense of Dracula. What's going to happen? Why is he going out there? And he's been called upon to administer the Turing test on an android. And that's when we realize Nathan is in fact a Frankenstein figure who is trying to create life in ways that are electronic. So he's making a robot to try to see if that robot can pass the Turing test and be considered human. I love it because of that. I love Frankenstein narratives. I love this idea of creating artificial life and seeing what that life does. And I'm currently doing quite a bit of scholarship and writing about the female Frankenstein creature, the bride figure, right? And so this one I just love. It's polished, it's clean, it's unexpected, and it's got some scary stuff to it as well. So this one's a 10 out of 10 for me. I don't have a lot of the A24 films at a 10, but this one's really, really pretty amazing. And the acting is where a lot of it's at. So highly recommend Ex Machina, recommend it's an own. I think that one's really, really great. Okay, also in 2014, these first three were kind of art horror, and they were a little surreal, a little psychological. With 2014's Life After Beth, we take a pretty extreme left turn into horror comedy world. This is one of the first A24 films I ever saw because I was watching it because of the zombie aspect of it. But I wanted to check it out because the cast is really shockingly good. Aubrey Plaza plays the titular Beth, who, spoiler, is a zombie. But we also have her parents, who are John C. Reilly. Love John C. Reilly. And Molly Shannon. She's great. And then we also have the other couple, Cheryl Hines, Paul Reiser. There's also Anna Kendrick is in here in a relatively small role. The boyfriend is Dane DeHaan, who I don't really know, but he plays Zach. Anyway, Beth disappears. She's in a car wreck. She's pronounced dead. They have a funeral. Zach's really upset. The parents are upset. They're trying to move on. And then Beth just shows up. She shows up one day out of the blue. Now, I'm going to do a much more detailed review of this over on Dead Man Still Walking. But I will say that it's clever because the zombies don't seem to know they're zombies, and they degrade mentally as well as physically, so they get a little less in touch with reality as they go on. And they aren't just super hungry, they're super everything. So she's really kind of turned on the whole time. She's really attracted to everyone and everything, and she's super strong. Anyway, the film gets a little silly. It's not particularly scary, but it is kind of a cool take on the zombie. All right, so this brings us to the final 2014 film from A24. Oh, sorry, got ahead of myself. Life After Beth is a 7 out of 10. That's probably way higher than most people would put it, but that's because it's a zombie film, and I like zombie films. All right, so now we're on to Tusk, 2014's Tusk. Tusk, as I understand it, was basically started as a joke on Kevin Smith's podcast, and they came up with this outrageously bizarre idea about an eccentric scientist, Howard Howe, played by Michael Parks, who is obsessed with walruses and wants to turn Justin Long's Wallace Brighton into a walrus, literally, by using body modification surgery. So Kevin Smith wrote and directed this. Now, on the No Bodies podcast, they generally kind of liked this movie because they saw it as a satire. They saw the comedic elements, how silly it was. I found it really stupid. Found it dumb. Found the concept really hard to relate to. I found the characters really hard to connect with. And it's really disturbing. Now, a lot of people are into body horror. This does have body horror. But it's weird to have the body horror tied so much with the comedy, especially when Johnny Depp shows up. So, if you're curious about Tusk, by all means, check it out. If you're a fan of Justin Long, I thought this was bonkers. I thought it was, what is it? An hour and 42 minutes of my life that I'll never get back. And so all apologies to the No Bodies podcast crew, but I give Tusk a 2 out of 10. It is the worst A24 film, and it is perhaps one of the worst films ever made. So, sorry, Kevin Smith. I am not a fan of Tusk. So there we have it. We have the first 5 of the A24 horror films, and out of those first 5, the clear winner for me is Ex Machina. So stay tuned, and I'll do a few more of these mini episodes, give you some quick reviews of the rest of the A24 franchise, body of work, oeuvre, whatever you want to do. So thanks for checking it out. If you like the content, feel free to share, and you're welcome to join me over on Dead Men Still Walking and Jay the Dead's new horror movies.